What is up, Bears fans? Welcome to the Bears Huddle podcast, your UK take on all things Chicago Bears. I'm Owen James, your host. I'm going to bring you all the latest news. Well, we're going to talk a little bit of a strange one. We're going to talk about Ryan Poles. We're going to talk a little bit about, does he get unfair criticism from the Bears fan base? That does seem to be a topic that kind of divides fans. I mean, I've listened to a number of different podcasts recently. A little bit of Chicago Bears Central, a little bit of Locked On, Film Bears Film Room. There's so much good stuff out there, guys. So much good stuff out there. But look, people are very much split. There's those that think that Poles is an awesome negotiator, that he does great deals for the Bears, that he gets good contracts done. He brings in good players. There are others that think he is an absolute disaster and holding the franchise back, and the Bears will never be successful as long as Poles is the general manager. So look, you've got to kind of look at both sides of the argument on this one to see, does he get this unfair criticism? But now before anyone comes in with this preconceived idea, this is going to be a video of me just going, he's amazing, he's brilliant, just get off his back, blah, blah, blah. That's not what this video is about, guys. We're going to look at the arguments. We're going to look at both sides. We're going to look at, does he do a good job? Does he do a bad job? What is the situation, with Ryan Poles? And how he is actually doing as the Bears GM. So look, I think the starting position always has to be the record, doesn't it? With Ryan Poles, you have to look at his record with the Bears. That is the overall picture, isn't it? And look, I'll agree with you that his overall record with the Chicago Bears as general manager, which look is the results record, is not all down to him. Let's get that clear. Before anyone criticizes and says you can't just look at the results record on its own. Well, I'm not. I'm just saying that, yes, this is part of it because he is the man that builds the team. He is the man that helps pick the coaches. He is the man who appoints the head coach along with the team ownership and Kevin Warren and et cetera, et cetera. But look, he does have an influence. Yes, not the sole influence. It's down to the players. It's down to the head coach. It's down to, a lot of factors that go into that Bears record. Now, in the 3 seasons that Poles has been the GM after taking over from Kevin Pace, he is 3-14, 7-10, 5-12. So he's had 3 losing seasons all back to back. There's been no winning seasons in those 3 seasons since 2022. In fact, his overall record is 15-36. His win percentages in those seasons, the first year in 2022, a 176, a 0.412 in the 7 and 10 in 2023, and a 0.294 last year. I think, I think first of all, that first year, I think we all kind of knew that this was about the reset. It was about tanking, doing badly, so we could get the players in, we could obviously start to build, to reset the franchise. And I think, that was kind of given away by Ryan Poles' reaction when he talked about that. Now, look, Poles did slightly make a rod for his own back when he came in, when he talked of taking the North and never giving it back, which obviously has not happened. As you can see from this pretty appalling record. And like I said, he is not the man who is solely to blame for this. You've got to obviously look at the head coach, you've got to look at the players, etc., etc. But, obviously he's responsible for appointing the head coach. Some bad decisions made there. Obviously Eberflus, Coach Flus was just an absolute disaster. Obviously the offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, again, absolute disaster. So, the appointments there have not been great. So, that's sort of the headline there. But I suppose you can kind of argue now that he has shown some courage. He's gone out and he has helped. And he has obviously played a part in ensuring that Ben Johnson comes to Chicago. And Ben Johnson is widely seen across the NFL as one of the brightest, most promising young offensive minds and promising young head coaches in the game. He's already looking at a lot of people are already tipping him for head coach of the year. A lot of people are already tipping the Bears for have a great 2025 on the back of what Ben Johnson will bring. So you've got to kind of praise Poles for the fact that he has come in. He has obviously appointed Ben Johnson. Yes, it's taken him 3 years to get to that point. Yes, he is responsible for the other head coach appointees, but Ben Johnson, good appointment, hopefully. Too early to tell, I know. We can't obviously, kind of say yes he is because there's no results coming yet. We haven't had a season under him, but what we're seeing so far, what we're hearing so far is all very promising. So, overall, you've got to look at that and say, well, Ryan's done a good job in terms of getting Ben Johnson. His record prior to that is not good at all. I suppose, on the contract negotiation situation, you've got to say overall, he's he hasn't done too badly there, especially in recent times. Obviously the Jalen Johnson deal is a bit of a steal, although there are rumours circulating at the moment that Jalen Johnson actually wants more money, which we'll talk about in another video. So he has been extended. Look, he has been extended, Brian Poles. So it's clear that the organisation has faith in him. But, as I've said, he's made some good decisions. He has made some good decisions in his time as head coach, as general manager. Obviously, the first one's appointment of the new head coach. Yes, he got them wrong before. Prior to that, obviously, you've got the Jalen Johnson situation. I think, Jalen Johnson, I think he's about the 14th highest paid cornerback in the NFL. The deal that was done for Johnson looks very, very good now, especially obviously given what the likes of Sauce Gardner are getting paid. Although, so that's a positive. And he does seem to be able to do those deals, doesn't he? To get those deals over the line, to do the negotiation, to get that deal done. Obviously, the Joe Tooney extension as well. Another pretty good one from recent times. He has had to oversee a major rebuild, and rebuilds take time. I think that is another side argument those for him. We obviously had that disastrous season in 2022. It gives him obviously the chance to do the trade with Carolina in March 2023, where he gets DJ Moore and 4 draft picks, which we used to obviously get Caleb Williams, Darnell Wright, Tyreek Stevenson, and indirectly, obviously, Luther Burden and Torrey Taylor through this season. So, there's good points to that Carolina trade. The really good points. That deal, he pretty much did fleece Carolina. So we've got to look at that and say, yeah, that's good. That's good work from Ryan Poles. But I suppose you can argue, counter argument is that yes, he made those decisions. Yes, he brought in those players. Obviously, not including Luther Burden, for example, but the other ones in particular, obviously Caleb Williams last season, Darnell Wright, Tyreek Stevenson, DJ Moore, yet still had losing seasons and didn't look like there was a lot of progress. And I think last year there was an expectation that they would do better than 5-12, but obviously it didn't. Then this year, I think, there has been a determination to get things right. I think the widely held kind of view is that if you want to be a successful team in the NFL, you have to build through the trenches. And maybe you can argue the defensive line is not great, but he did go out and get Grady Jarrett. We already have Gervon Dexter. We've got Montez Sweat. We went and got Dayo Adeyingbo. So, there was moves there made. Are they enough? I guess on that one, only time will tell. Obviously, lots of hopes on Shamar Turner, on Andrew Billings coming through as well, on Austin Booker. I still think we're very short on the edge. I do think they need to move for an edge. That is something that Poles hopefully will address. That is an area that he does need to look at. However, he has gone out there and recognised that one of the big issues last season during Caleb Williams' rookie season, not only was the head coach who was awful and the offensive coordinator who was equally as awful, but the offensive line was absolutely catastrophic last season. The fact that Caleb Williams had over 60 sacks, the fact that Caleb Williams was constantly running for his life, the fact that Caleb Williams was was harassed and didn't have the opportunity to create, to throw the ball downfield as much as he would want, was rushed in his passing. And I think a lot of how Caleb played last year is down to the fact that A, he had an awful offensive coordinator, B, he had an awful head coach, and C, obviously the offensive line was not good. So Poles has recognised this. He's gone out. He's built a new offensive line. We've acquired obviously Joe Tooney, Drew Dolman, Jonah Jackson. Added obviously in the draft Ozzie Trapillo. I mean, there's still obviously that controversy over who gets to be the left tackle, as I mentioned in the video the other day. Is it Ozzie Trapillo? Is it Braxton Jones, who comes back from injury? But then you have a decision to make on Braxton's contract. Or is it obviously Kieran Amagaji? So there's options there. But, in terms of that build that he's done, along with obviously drafting Darnell Wright, he's gone about it in the right way. He's recognised the trenches are important. He's recognised he needs to do something about the trenches, and he's gone out and done it. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here for a minute and say that it's Harry Roseman-esque, because it's not. The guy, that guy who has turned Philadelphia into one of the juggernaut franchises of the NFL. Poles is certainly nowhere near him and his level yet, and hopefully maybe one day he gets there. And he has made mistakes. Of course he's made mistakes. You could argue the Roquan Smith thing was a mistake. You could argue that a number of other players that he's missed out on, the Jalen Carter situation, for example, is a mistake. But I guess only time will tell. I mean, I think, personally for me, the truth is somewhere in between. Is he a complete disaster? No. Is he fantastic? No. So at this moment in time, you'd probably say he was a solid average. He was solid, a solid GM. He's gone out, he's addressed what he needs to address. He's trying to rebuild the team. It takes time. He's gone out and got the quarterback, hopefully, which Caleb. Look, I think he will live and die by Caleb Williams as well. I think if Caleb, has a fantastic second year, gets us to the playoffs, then I think, obviously Ryan Poles is going to get a lot of praise. But if Caleb goes out, struggles again, ends up getting benched for Tyson Bagent, or just completely fails this season again, then. Not that I'm saying that Williams failed last season, because I don't think he completely failed. And any failures weren't always down to him. Some were, not always. I think Poles could well live and die by his quarterback. This is his guy. This is the guy that he drafted first overall. So, this is someone he's pinned a lot on. And I think if he doesn't work out, then obviously Ryan Poles is going to have a lot to answer for. But, he's gone out and recognised positions. He's renegotiated contracts well. I think he's a fantastic negotiator, don't get me wrong, in what he does. Now, is he the right man to take this franchise forward? That's the question as general manager. And I think, to be perfectly honest with you, time will tell. This is not an assessment we can make now. I think the extension, is a sign, whether you agree with the extension or don't agree with the extension, that the organisation are putting their faith in him. They're basically saying, right, this is our man. We're backing him. He has in our eyes the ability to go on and build a successful franchise. He is a good general manager, and we believe that he will take this team forward. That is, I think, what they're saying with that contract extension. Personally, I would have waited until the end of the season to look at how this season went. I think a lot of how this season goes, especially given the message that is coming out of Chicago from the likes of Ben Johnson, this is a win now season. That if we come out of this season not qualifying for the playoffs, you can't have an even record, with say a 9-8 record or an 8-9 record or a bad record, then I think the noose tightens around his neck, because a lot carries on him for that. So the jury is out, I think, is the best situation here, and I think the time to make the right assessment of him will be at the end of this season. We've put a lot into this team this year with the building of the O-line, getting all those weapons ready for Caleb, giving Caleb the offensively minded head coach that he wants, giving Caleb the offensive staff that he needs, giving Caleb everything he needs to succeed, giving Ben Johnson all the weapons he needs to succeed, building that offensive line. He's played a part in all of that to Ryan Poles. And I think, like I said, time will tell whether this is the right decision, whether he's made the right decisions, and that is the end of this season. And like I said, if we come out with, an 11-6, 12-5 record, get to the playoffs, I think you can say that he's done a good job and we're moving in the right direction. I don't think this is a Super Bowl winning roster yet, nowhere near. I think it's going to take at least another season to get to anywhere near that, perhaps even longer. But I do believe that we are moving in the right direction. But the time to fully assess Poles will be at the end of this season. And I think any criticism saying that he's the worst GM ever, blah, 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 is a little unfair at this point in time. And I think does need to kind of, if you are one of those people who is anti-Poles, who does not like Poles, I think you need to keep your powder dry until the end of the season. Then if, at the end of the season we fail again, then you can come back with the told you so's. But I do think that he needs this season with his head coach, with his quarterback, to see how this goes. And if it succeeds, if it works out, then we pat him on the back and say, well done, Ryan. If it fails, then maybe big questions need to be asked about Ryan Poles' future. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks for watching the Bears Huddle podcast. As always, guys, if you've enjoyed the content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe as we bring you the UK view on our Bears. Guys, catch you on the next one. Bear down.